this idea that everything has to be made accessible, like everything has to be a certain way, especially when it comes to art. So let's start off this video with a little bit of a story. Growing up, I played games from a pretty young age, and there wasn't that much in the way of like difficulty settings that I can recall from some of the older game consoles. Some of those games were pretty frustrating trying to get them beat, especially for a young kid that wasn't really that great at games yet. One I remember in particular, I think, was Mario 64, and my memory is a bit hazy, but I don't recall there being a difficulty setting for that game. And I remember a point where I almost started crying because I was getting so frustrated. I think it was pretty close to the end of the game, and maybe it was during the Bowser fight. And I just like could not do it. I was trying over and over and over. Oh, and I was frustrated, but eventually I did it. Unfortunately for me, I think one of the reasons I was that way is because I don't get that much satisfaction from beating something that's challenging. Sometimes when there's something I really want to do and it's hard to do, then I'll be really satisfied if I overcome whatever it was that was stopping me. But generally when it comes to games, I just want to enjoy them. But it probably wasn't until I was in my teens or so before I was like, let me embrace a little bit more challenge. And I played games like Halo, and I would always play it on like easy or normal. So I decided to try the heroic difficulty and then ultimately the legendary difficulty. And I started to kind of embrace the satisfaction of having more challenge and what it takes to beat a game on a higher difficulty. However, there's some games, like I was mentioning before with some of the older games, like I think Grand Theft Auto might be one that's a good example. I don't think that game has a difficulty setting. Could be wrong, correct me if I am. But there's been kind of a longing, I feel like, in a lot of gamers from what I've seen over the years, where there's not as much challenge. There's a lot of hand holding. Like, games are always telling you exactly where to go and what to do, and the paths are very linear. Obviously not all games are going to be exploring type games. They're going to kind of direct you on a path, but I've just seen a lot of talk from a lot of people who are true gamers that kind of long for the old difficulty of the past. So then now you have games like Dark Souls and this new game, what's it called? Sekiro? I don't know how you say it, but these games are bringing back some of that old school challenge into the modern gaming environment. And a lot of people love them for that, and they seem to get a lot of jollies off of the accomplishment of beating the game. But of course, we can never let artists be artists and game developers and designers to choose to make something difficult just for the expression of doing that and getting a reaction from the player base and to provide a certain type of experience, because everything's got to become some kind of controversy and some kind of movement and all that great stuff. So I've been hearing a bit of a discussion about this article that came out recently, and I thought I'd take a look at it and maybe we'll kind of go over some of the stuff that's in it and see if we can figure out what's going on. So here we have this article from Kotaku, written by Joshua Rivera. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And the title of this article is "An Easy Mode Has Never Ruined a Game." I don't know if that's really a disagreeable thing to say, but let's see exactly what he had to say about it. In video games, easy is a dirty word, even when it shouldn't be. There's something about the word easy that rubs some players as condescending, something that we should maybe leave behind, except where we shouldn't. Like in From Software games and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, a game that finds itself plagued by a debate that is, by now, familiar. Should it have an easy mode? So just from that one paragraph, I would say I find that somewhat agreeable. Like I said, in my earlier gaming days when I would play it on like normal or easy and I would hear other people talking about playing them on harder difficulties, you do get kind of a sense of like inferiority or whatever. Like, oh, I didn't play it on the hardest difficulty. I'm not as much of a gamer or whatever. You feel kind of like frowned upon or something that you played it on the easy difficulty. And I think nowadays with games like Minecraft and whatnot, people aren't necessarily as shy about the whole easy mode thing. A lot of people will claim that they play games for the story and whatnot, so the difficulty of the game itself isn't that big of a deal. But I do agree that there is kind of this weird culture surrounding like difficult games, and it's kind of like a measure of pride or something. But I mean, to each his own. If people want to get their jollies off of playing games really difficult and other people want to just play them easy, whatever. Moving on down a little ways, he says, like pledging a fraternity, a From game becomes a little more than a game when everyone who's finished it has had to endure the same litany of absurd theatrical challenges. Finish a From game and you belong to an exclusive club full of other people who get it. Furthermore, Sekiro removes one of the biggest options that previous From games provided to players stymied by difficulty, the ability to summon other players for help. So it's even harder than some of their other games. As a result, talking about Sekiro can easily shift to talking about you, all the things you did to beat its challenges, and your personal case for why you earned your spot in Club Sekiro. So this kind of goes into what I was saying earlier, like a lot of people kind of develop a sense of pride and, you know, the winners club or whatever, and it's all very cliquey. It can kind of become, you know, like the console wars, the PC master race, Xbox versus PlayStation. People always turn these things into, you know, groups and rivalries and things like that. It's not that big of a deal in my opinion. It is something I've noticed, and in a lot of ways I kind of loathe it. I think people are kind of ridiculous for putting that much of their self-esteem and their personality into identifying with these things that don't really matter. You know, it's just entertainment, so what are you doing? But I agree that there is a bit of like a clickiness to it. So he kind of goes on through the article sort of elaborating on why the game is the way it is and the choices that have been made to make it the way it is. Then it kind of gets to this pivotal point where it kind of changes. There's a bird outside. I'm gonna go shut the door. Okay, now that that's been taken care of. So there's this pivotal point where the article kind of shifts. Now this isn't the most egregious one that I've seen of, you know, things like this, but the shift comes where you kind of see where they're getting at with this stuff. Part of the trouble is that difficulty can mean so many different things. Yeah, that's true, technically. You know, difficulty can be any number of things in a game or whatever. But are we really going to like try to read into this that deeply? Do we really need to analyze what difficulty means? It's like a game developer is trying to make an experience for gamers to play a game, and it's kind of difficult. They want it to be that way. End of the story. Like, why are we talking about this? Is there... There are myriad ways video games can turn the dials on various systems to change our assessment of how hard they seem, and many developers have done as much without compromising the quality or integrity of their games. Consider Halo in the Bungie era. One of the understandings between the developers and the players was that the heroic difficulty was Halo as the studio intended it to be played, with entirely different enemy behaviors and placement. Easy and normal were there to welcome anyone who needed it, and even if it required less from you, you might have still found yourself engaged by the game's story. So here we go, you know, we're talking about the developer's intentions and then allowing the game to be accessible, and some people play it for the hardness of the difficulty, and some play it for the easiness in the story, and they just want to have fun. Like, okay, fair enough. But then we get to the, you know, the meat of it, like what they're actually trying to get to in this story. Some of the people arguing for an easy mode in Sekiro aren't just doing it because they refuse to unlearn or adjust their normal play habits, as frequent Kotaku contributor GB Doc Burford has written. Players who suffer from chronic pain or a significant physical disability can find the skill threshold in From games wholly insurmountable. With my chronic pain and fatigue issues, Burford, whatever, writes, rapidly mashing buttons in games like Bayonetta or God of War can be physically draining, and the die and repeat rhythm that FromSoft bosses like Bloodborne's Father Gascoigne, I don't know these names, I never played those games, demand causes tremendous pain to accrue in his hand. So now we're getting to the point in the story here where the argument becomes about accessibility. We're no longer talking about, you know, an artist's vision and what they're trying to do with their game. It's about, what about other people who want to play it and they can't due to physical limitations or something? I myself deal with chronic pain that's only alleviated by a brace. When I put it on, I am 10% clumsier with a controller. I don't know how he measures that it's only 10%, but we'll take his word for it. Making Sekiro 10% harder. Can I rise to meet that extra 10%? Maybe. Should I be expected to? That's a different question. Some people with disabilities may not need adjustments, but that's exactly the point. Hard means different things to different people. This is like such a non-argument in my opinion. The line, should I be expected to? It's like, no one's forcing you to play these games, man. Like, no one cares if you play the game or not. Obviously, I don't think it's good to leave people behind. If a developer wants to take people with physical impairments and things like that into consideration, that's perfectly fine. But choosing whether or not you're making your game difficult is somehow like exclusionary and leaving people out of the game experience or whatever. It's like, this is what they made the game to be. Like, there's an audience for that. It doesn't matter whether it's your own personal disabilities or interests, whatever the case may be. It's like if it doesn't suit your play style or your abilities, then it's just not made for you. Like, that's just the market. Like, not every game should be forced to appeal to everyone or to compensate for everyone's handicaps, whether they're mental or physical or just like play style handicaps. Maybe we should make a handicap for age, because like a lot of older people or younger people can't play as well. So there should be those people taken into consideration. Like, we should just consider everyone's possible disposition and make sure every single game ever made can appeal and work for everyone. So if people want more action and more difficulty, every casual game like SimCity or something should add an action element that brings in all the hardcore shooter fans. And every game that's really difficult should bring in a Barbie Horse Adventures mode for the people who don't want to play the hardcore experience. Obviously, I'm exaggerating a bit there, but like this kind of like entitled, like, oh, you gotta make something that suits everybody. It's like, let an artist be an artist. Let them make what they want to make and realize their vision however they want to see it. There are plenty of developers making games with the range of difficulty settings that you would want. Just go play those games. Like, why do you have to play this game? Is it just because it exists? It has to suit everyone? Anyway, moving on to the end, the last couple of paragraphs here. Sekiro and other From Software games aren't necessarily about being hard in the first place. Not specifically, at least. It's still a big part of it, though. Like, they're intentionally making the game more difficult. They are, as From Software director, I'm not even going to try to say it, about letting players experience a sense of accomplishment through overcoming difficulties. Then, of course, you got to bring in the expert because your point is so important. An accessibility expert, Ian Hamilton, noted on Twitter, there are many ways this could be accomplished. So what, dude? They want to make the game difficult in a certain way. They want it to play a certain way. Huzzah! They did it. Not everybody's going to be into it. Maybe not everyone's going to be able to play it. Maybe not everyone's going to be interested in playing it, but that's their thing. There's a whole market of games out there, more than ever. There's people making games in their bedrooms, and you can play any number of them. A lot of them are free. Why does this particular game, or why does this particular studio have to change what they're trying to do to suit this? Why do they have to listen to your idea of what accessibility is in order to make a game that they want to make? Would this mean that some players might miss whatever point the game is trying to make? Sure! Movies with closed captioning for the learning impaired. Movies with closed captioning for the hearing impaired are making a concession, tacitly acknowledging that a fundamental part of the experience will not be appreciated. That's completely different, though, isn't it? Like, people who want to watch movies, like, there's not a specific movie that would have to change what it is and the experience that it is to compensate for someone who's hearing impaired. It's like, you're going to miss out on the sound, but that's going to be the same for anything you watch. It's also possible as an able-bodied, neurotypical human being to completely miss the point of a film and believe yourself to be right. Games, like just about, I don't even know what that last sentence meant. Anyway, games like just about every other art form don't always explain their creator's intent. Not all of it. That's for us to sort out, and there's nothing wrong with letting more of us try. So there's the article, and obviously I shared a lot of my thoughts on it in the process of reading it, but something that's a little bit interesting about this kind of stuff. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what Joshua Rivera here has written in the past and see if we can note something a little bit interesting. So his most recent one is this one here, and you'll notice here that we have this save for later button as well as comments. So he's written a few according to this list here. I don't know if he's written any more and they're just not here anymore or something, but in any case, 69 comments. Of course, that one's only been up for a day, so we'll let that slide. Then we have this one, 59 comments. This one's 105 comments. Oh, there's this one we just read. Let's skip past that. And oh, this is the oldest one that's on here, 101 comments. So we go up to the one we just read, almost 2,000 comments. So what that means is, it doesn't matter whether their point is actually good or not. It's controversial, it's popular, whether that's a good or bad thing, if people are actually arguing it against it or advocating for what they're talking about here. that means he's probably going to end up writing more stuff like this, more things that are trying to guilt gamers, to guilt developers into making the kind of games that they think should be made in a way that they think they should be made. So that's good. We can look forward to more of this. Obviously, if you go into the world's dumpster fire known as Twitter, then there's even more discussion going on about this. And a lot of the people that I've seen have been pretty much in agreement with it, you know? They don't like the fact that a game would just be made to be difficult and that a casual gamer can't come in and actually enjoy it. You know, you got someone like this guy, Orange Man Bad. Naturally, you would expect that these are the kinds of people who are upset about a game's difficulty. Anyway, you can see here there's a lot of discussion about this story here. Some people agree, some people disagree, like I said, but it's generating conversation. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting, and I thought maybe I could offer kind of a unique perspective as someone who has in the past and even to this day will sometimes put a easier difficulty in a game just because I want to enjoy it and not really be pressured and riddled with anxiety trying to beat a simple game. I just want to relax and have a good time. But this idea that everything has to be made accessible, like everything has to be a certain way, especially when it comes to art. You have plenty of choices. There is nothing that says you have to play this particular game or in this particular way. If a game comes out and it's too difficult for you, maybe you're just not interested in difficult games, right? Like, you don't have to experience that story. Go find a game that has an interesting story, that has the difficulty and the play style that you're into. It's like, it's kind of its own genre. Like, why try to make people change the vision, their artistic vision and what they're after, just to accommodate people who obviously aren't the target demographic for that game. In addition to that, like, most things are dictated by money nowadays. So like, if they want more money, they would make it more accessible. Like, that's just good marketing. Like, the more people, it's like Fortnite, make something highly accessible and they'll make you a lot more money. Clearly this is the deliberate decision they make to make games this way, to target a certain audience, to provide a specific experience. So to take something like that and try to turn it into, oh, you're leaving people behind, it's not accessible, and like, there's difficulty can mean anything. It's like, well, doesn't matter. Difficulty means this thing to this game and to this developer. This is what they wanted to do, and that's the experience they put out there. In the story, it's over. Sorry. Like, I've never even played these games. You know why? Because I'm not really into those games. I don't really care what the story is because I'm not interested in grinding away to try and beat a game to be part of the club. I like to play other games. Sometimes I like to play difficult games. Sometimes I like to play easy, casual games. And I don't worry about what other people are doing because I'm not into it. How hard is that? How hard is it to just do what you want to do and let other people do what they want to do instead of demand that everything conform to the way that you live your life or what you're able to do in your life? Not everything is made to be experienced by everyone. So that's going to do it for this topic. I've been thinking about doing more videos like this, kind of talking about stuff that I see and ranting about my opinion on it. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button. If you want to see more of this stuff, subscribe or something. And I guess that's the end of that.